Hello, this is the Bible in Fewer Words. We are Steve and Carol Wells. This is episode 7, Genesis chapter 21. Before we begin today, Steve has an announcement.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the text for each episode is available at the Skeptic's Annotated Bible website, along with links to the actual Bible verses. There's also attached notes about topics that we didn't have time to cover during the podcast.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure. If you go there, the podcast is embedded, so you can read along with us as we're doing the episode, if you'd like.
Sounds like read along with Steve and Carol.
Exactly, because sometimes you can't tell what is text and what is our crazy comments.
Yeah, they can be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Steve, you want to go ahead and go first?
Okay. Do we need to say anything about what happened in the previously? Can you kind of remember? We had Sodom and Gomorrah going on, and then we had Abraham and Sarah on another traveling on a little vacation there, right?
Oh,
they
yes.
were going to Gerar.
Yes,
right?
And then they do the thing they always do on vacation.
That's right. She always says that she's his sister.
I'm Abraham's sister.
Yeah, so we did that again, one more time, and Abraham got a bunch of stuff, and they left. Now I guess they're back again in the land of Canaan, or wherever they were. In the land of Canaan.
Okay.
All right, so chapter 21, verse 1. God visited Sarah and did to her as he promised.
That's kind of ominous.
It's also a little bit vague. What the heck did he do to her?
Uh-huh.
And the Bible doesn't say exactly what he did to her, but the next verse says that she conceived and delivered a son for Abraham in his old age. So somehow, Sarah and Abraham had been having troubles having children during their entire
100
marriage.
years.
Well, they'd only been married for like 33 years or something like that. Is that right?
I can't remember.
How old was Abraham? Anyway, it's been a while, 30 years or so, that they've been married, but they haven't had any kids.
God, something he does a lot is closes wombs and opens wombs.
Yes, he does.
So is that what he promised? He would open her womb.
It's a skill that is
godly.
It's godly, and few people know today.
Yes.
A lot of doctors try to do that. It's tough to do, but he does that, and so I guess that's what's involved here. We don't really know, but God did promise he would make sure that she would get pregnant.
Yes, and every time God opens a womb, a little boy is born.
Yeah, and that wasn't too long ago, because he made that promise when Abraham was nearly 100.
Uh-huh.
Now he is 100. So just recently he made that promise. Now she's showing up and making good on his promise. We don't know the mechanics here. We don't know how he got her pregnant, but somehow God got her pregnant or helped Abraham get her pregnant, which would be, might be kind of hard to do because Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah is 90. So it's hard to get couples that are that old pregnant.
Yes.
But God managed it here.
Because I remember a story about somebody getting some heat.
Oh yes, but that's coming
way down
up.
the line.
Yeah.
Okay, so God helped Abraham here get some heat, I guess.
Maybe, we don't know.
Okay.
I mean, maybe he did it himself, God or with an angel or whatever. But somehow the job was done.
Uh-huh.
I think Abraham did it. God helped Abraham do it.
Okay.
So we'll go on with verse 4 here.
Well, actually, there's a third line there.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Verse 3 says that Abraham named his son Isaac.
And was that also a directive from God? You shall name him Isaac?
No, I don't think so. It has something to do with, remember how Sarah laughed when God said that she would get pregnant? It's a play on the words, to laugh.
Ah.
Kind of nice.
That is clever.
So when the next verse says that when Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded. Abraham was 100 years old at the time.
So circumcision is something that Abraham is able to
Oh, yeah, he's got some practice there because he circumcised himself.
Oh, yeah.
And his other son, Ishmael, when he was about 13 years old.
And didn't he also circumcise a whole bunch of men?
He circumcised all of his slaves.
Okay.
And we know that he had a lot because he had 318 that helped him fight the war of Sodom and Gomorrah way back. So it must have been quite the event. All of his slaves and his son Ishmael, and then Abraham himself sacrificed himself. He did it to himself when he was 99 years old.
Yes, that does sound painful.
Yeah.
And you just said sacrifice, and I think as a man...
Did I say sacrificed himself? Oh, I'm sorry. He circumcised himself.
No, but let me say, for a man to talk about circumcision, sometimes it does seem like, the ultimate sacrifice.
Oh, yeah, I'd just say sacrifice me. Yeah, right.
And I think Abraham was now a circumcision expert.
Yeah, he would be.
All right, so I'm going to go on with verse 8. Abraham had a feast to celebrate the day that Isaac was weaned. Okay, so weaned, are we talking about, a child normally nurses for a couple of years, sometimes up to 5.
Yeah.
So the time is going by.
It is, and it's kind of important. We'll see later in this chapter that it's kind of important to know how long that period might be. Mm-hmm. But the Bible doesn't tell us.
Okay. On that day, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking his little brother. So Sarah said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman and her son, because the son of a slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." I continue to have trouble with that word heir, but we'll get beyond it. So I want to say that what the heck did Ishmael do to his brother Isaac? People
have been wondering that ever since this verse was written. The Jews have debated, the rabbis have debated it, and everyone has wondered. Whatever it was, it must have been something that really disturbed Sarah, and people have speculated that
yes.
That there was some type of sexual play going on. In fact, the verb that is used here is the same verb that will be used later. I don't know if I'm giving, can I give things away?
Yes, give it away.
Okay, so I don't want to give too much away, but later on, there's a couple that are, a king sees them.
Intimate.
Intimate, yeah.
Being
that's the word.
Okay.
And he knew then that they were married, or at least they were a couple. Because of the way that what he was doing. And the verb that was used was the same verb that's used here.
What is that?
In Hebrew?
No. So mocking, I guess.
It's tizak or something.
Tizak.
It's something like that, very, very close to that. And so sometimes it's in the King James used mock. Ishmael mocked Isaac.
I would think that would be teasing, and kids tease each other.
Some people just say, you're just laughing at him, just being rude, kind of a jerk. But people wonder because she had such an extreme reaction, as we'll see here.
Yeah, because, as a mom, you see kids kind of teasing and bugging each other.
Yeah.
You just want them to cut it out.
We don't know their ages because we don't know. They had a feast on the day that he was weaned. I guess they decided, okay, you're weaned. And they had a feast that day. And this is the day that it happened, the very day that it happened. And so maybe he was 2, maybe he was 4 or 5. But if he was 4 or 5, then that means that Ishmael would have been, 18?
Yeah.
So Ishmael was somewhere between 14 and 18, we'll say.
Okay, so moving on. She, asked Abraham to cast out the slave woman who's Hagar and her son, Ishmael. Mm-hmm. So Abraham didn't want to abandon his son, Ishmael. Well, that's big of him.
Yeah, he's quite the father.
Yes, he is. But God said to Abraham, "Don't worry about Ishmael and Hagar. Do what Sarah told you to do. Your seed will be Isaac's seed."
Yeah.
So he's just cutting Ishmael out.
God is telling Abraham, Abraham doesn't want to do it, but God is telling him to. Just abandon your son and the woman, the mother of your son.
Yeah.
That your seed, what is important about all of this, of course, is Abraham's seed. He's been promised all this seed, that's
a lot of land and seed to go along with it to populate it.
Yeah, the seed's a big deal. And so his offspring, his male offspring, because the females don't count, really. It's his male offspring with his seed. And it would ordinarily it would be Ishmael, because he's the oldest son. But God's saying, no, it's going to be Isaac.
Yeah.
Then explain why. That's just the way it's going to be.
Okay. Your turn.
Okay. Verse 14. Abraham gave Hagar some bread and a bottle of water and sent her and Ishmael into the wilderness. After the water ran out, Hagar put the little boy under a bush. Then she went away and said, "Let me not see his death," and sat and wept.
All right, there's a few odd things here.
Mm-hmm.
A bottle of water would last you like a day.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
So this happened, here's a bottle of water and some bread. And so she probably was still within eyesight of them,
Yeah.
It just seems so bizarre.
But had no choice of going home now. I mean, she'd been kicked out, so she was on her own. She knew it.
Yeah.
So, and another thing that's strange about this one is it actually describes her holding the boy in her hand, and it talks about a little boy, a child, like an infant almost, and yet he's a teenager. He's really a grown man at this point. So that's a little strange. But anyway, they're dying of thirst.
Mm-hmm.
Here, probably thirst. They have a little bit of bread.
Yeah. So that's going to be the end of them if something or somebody doesn't intervene.
Right. But then we have in verse 17, God heard the little boy crying, and an angel called Hagar from heaven, saying, "What's wrong with you, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the voice of your little boy."
Okay, so crying under a bush, that's what God heard.
He heard.
He didn't hear her saying, "Don't let me see him die."
Yeah, she was kind of being quiet, but he heard the crying of the little boy.
Okay.
"Get up and lift him in your hand. I will make him a great nation."
Yeah, lifting him in her hand.
Yeah, that's what I was.
So you could do that with an infant.
Right, and even that's kind of a struggle.
Yes.
If it's a big,
a
couple-year-old kid.
Yes.
But yeah, for the 16-year-old boy, which is what we have here, apparently, that's not going to work. But
no.
Anyway, that's what the verse says.
Okay, so God is promising to make Ishmael a great nation.
A great nation, and he kind of explains it a little bit. God opened Hagar's eyes so she could see a well, and she gave him a drink. Ishmael lived in the wilderness and became an archer. And Hagar found an Egyptian wife for him to marry.
All right, well, that story took a turnaround there pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's the end of the story. We don't hear anything really about Hagar and Ishmael from this point on. Yeah, I think we have a few begats about who Ishmael begat. I'm not even sure of that. We'll have to check when we get there.
Okay. So, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I don't know. I think this is a pretty clear situation here. We've got Abraham and Sarah with a new son, and that's their son. I mean, that's the son that God told Abraham was the special son, the favored son, the one that's going to inherit everything. Mm-hmm. And the other son we just need to get rid of because, well, he mocked Isaac.
Yeah. Okay, so we are done with... So this was not a boring book. I mean, there's stuff that happens here. Isaac...
Oh, it moves along quite quickly in many... At least certainly here. There are going to be some boring parts ahead, and we'll cover them quickly. So it'll be interesting all the way through.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.